Trump, the person, is gone. But Trump, the cause that he represented, is not gone. As you are aware from all the international media networks, the question you just asked now has been the dominant question. Are we done with Trumpism? Did he go bag and baggage out the back door of the White House with everything? The way I understand it is no. Trump was an iceberg. He represented the tip of an iceberg. The whole bulk of that iceberg is there. And we saw part of that bulk reacting on January 6th when they stormed the Capitol. There are certain issues that have been long, if you like, forgotten, treated with some levity in American history and politics over more than 200 years. Some of those things are now coming to a boiling point, and America has to face them and resolve them now, or they become victims of those issues.
Which is the burden that Biden starts with, right?
That's the burden he starts with.
So what are some of those issues?
Well, one is racism, and the other is hypocrisy.
Is that a thing?
Well, it's in the American system, it's so well crafted into the political process, all right? And the system has, over the years, developed a way of, putting a gloss on it, making it even look attractive, whereas the core is rotten, is evil. And unless you begin, in my opinion, to address those things, come face to face with them. The American Constitution is one that excites everybody who reads it. The first opening lines, that all men are born free, that all men seek liberty, life, and equality. Those are human qualities, human characteristics. Anywhere, any human being anywhere seeks them, because they are part and parcel of the human makeup, if you like. All of us, whether consciously or unconsciously, we seek freedom. That's why that word is so attractive, because that's really the nature of our soul. It's mobile, it's free. It cannot be subdued. You can subdue it for a while, but eventually it must seek freedom. All right? America recognized that, at least their leaders recognized it to some extent. They recognize that we seek equality, and that equality is related to that freedom. Because when you and I treat each other as equals, we allow each other the room to be what we should be, to do what we should do. You see that in families, you see it in groups, and so on and so forth. So the two are related. They recognize it, but because of pursuit of power and money, they could really never actualize it. That's why racism came in. That's why inequality continues to grow. America is a very strong economy, all right? Second to China in terms of total output and so on. The qualities may be different, but in terms of gross numbers, America comes second to China, all right? So it's a very powerful economy. Now, within that very powerful economy, you have people who are looking for 3 square meals. And on the other hand, you have people who have money, they don't know what to do with it, all right? And the ideology that allowed people to create this inequality is such that even the ordinary man on the street has bought into that ideology. So that you go into America today and you saw it come up in the election, they tell you, oh, the Democrats are the socialists. That has become a bogey. And the ordinary man who is poor in that society is going to say, no, I don't like socialism. You don't like socialism, and that socialism is what? Free medical care. When you're sick, when you're tired, you're dying of COVID, and you don't have the system to take care of yourself, you don't eat freedom. But they say, oh, these people will encroach on our freedom. America is supposed to be a free country. We're not supposed to be free. Nobody should tell us what to do. So nobody should tell you what to do. If government says wear face mask, you say, no, 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 that encroaches on my freedom. The corruption of freedom, of liberty, which has its roots in the Constitution, and all of them will say, we want to defend our Constitution. The corruption of that concept has eaten so deep into the society that you now tell people that, oh, your vote was stolen. and they will agree that a vote was stolen. Why? Because the person they voted for didn't win. Therefore, it was stolen. I don't know if you get what I'm pointing. So those things are deep in the system. A Biden can only scratch the surface dealing with them. Yes. It's the same system that brought him in. He cannot dismantle it. What they have to do and what they've been doing, which is what Trump didn't do, was to manage it. Trump gave it free rein. So all those people who have been hiding under all sorts of innocuous groups now saw, oh, there's somebody who speaks our language. We can follow him. That's why you see that he has such fanatical followership. I mean, when you think that, as the records show, they said to us, Trump gathered 70 million votes. That's frightful. Because it means that there are 70 million people at least in that place who think Trump is right. That the way he's going is the way they have to go. What is that way they're going? It goes back to that racism. It goes back to that initial hypocrisy when you said all men are born equal, but you are keeping slaves. Even those who penned that phrase that gets all of us excited, they had slaves right in their own home. But they breathed all men were born equal. Who did they mean by all men? All men were all white men. And it didn't even include women. So these are the people now who are making the claim of that promise in the Constitution. The system does not yet have a way to accommodate that claim. Because if you begin to accommodate that claim, you will do away with racism. If you begin to accommodate it, you will have to restructure your economy so that private property doesn't become what it is now. In America, if you don't own property, you can't be a member of the Senate. That is very clear. So from the word go, this thing was built for people who have property. And the ideology of the system makes it that you can acquire as much as you want. Just do your best to stay on the right side of the law. If the law doesn't catch you, as it didn't catch Trump, if you remember during the 2015 campaigns, they said you have not been paying taxes. And he said, I'm smart. He could obey the 11th commandment, thou shalt not be caught. And he did it. And if you read his biography, at least as written so far by his adversaries, so we may give some doubt to what they said. But the bulk of it is to say that this man has no sense of ethics. This man has no sense of morality. Yet this is the man that the system threw up. So it is buried in that system. How you begin to disentangle it, how you begin to now, infuse some integrity and morality into that system. That's what a Biden will have difficulty doing.
Why will it be so difficult? Is it because of the numbers on the other side?
That's partly that. He has to be respectful of the numbers on that side. Because in the political process, it's the majority. And 70 million is a lot of votes. All right? And especially in the American system, where the numbers don't, in themselves, give the result. It is the implication of those numbers. What I mean by that is, you win certain states, like California, like New York, like Pennsylvania, with large numbers in the college, the electoral college. All right? If you win in those votes, those states, even by one vote, you have all the electoral college votes. And the person who lost to you by that one vote has none. But it is that last count that is important. So the Democrats, now led by Biden, have to be mindful that they don't make those small mistakes that will cost them some of these states. That's where the part of his problem is. The other part of the problem is that this system that says, that so glorifies private property, he is part of it. It is big business that funds the political parties. It is big business that sets the agenda for any president. And he cannot fight that agenda. He can mess with it, at the edges. But the core will remain what it is. All right? Because even when you begin to go into that core, and that's why I said earlier on that the ideology of that system has been bought even by those who are oppressed by the system. So they are the ones, unknown to them, fighting against themselves because they think they're fighting for certain values and ideas. And because those values and ideas in themselves, very good, but they've been corrupted in the practice, they too become complicit in their oppression and domination.
Okay, let's talk about the economy. I know that when Biden was vice president, when Obama came in, the economy was something they had to deal with. Now he's dealing with another kind, not just the economy on its own, also health, with the effect of the COVID. How do you think he would go?
Well, one of the first things they have to do is following the American system. Crack up that system, empower the local governments, empower the states, because that's really where American political power in the long run rests, unlike our own. A mayor of a city can tell the president, sorry, you can't come here. And the president won't go. If he goes, that's contravening the provisions of the Constitution. But the point is that what happened and why that system, the coronavirus got so bad in the United States was that Trump being Trump, one was living in denial that this thing doesn't exist. If it existed, it's going to go away very soon. If it didn't go away very soon, okay, we bring in big business. And big business is going to give us a solution. You saw him empanel all those corporate leaders who came to the White House, big ceremony, each person saying, oh, we are doing this, we are doing that. In fairness to him, that helped in part to provide the vaccine that is now being used in many countries in the world, certainly in the United States. So to that extent, it was successful. But there was no system to distribute those things. Some of the local governments and state governments that were not Republican, the federal government simply turned their back on them. And when you have an epidemic, when you have a crisis, the one center that has the resources to deal with those things is the federal government. When that federal government is not giving you support, in the context of partly the denial of the president himself and those around him, the problem was bound to get more complicated. So first thing, in my opinion, that the Biden team should look at is this vaccine is now available. How do you distribute it so that those who need it will get it fast? How do you provide the protection for those in the front line? Because that has been part of the problem. The nurses, the doctors, first responders were thoroughly. If you recall, you knew that it took a lot for the PPEs to be available to the American people, and especially when PPEs were mainly being manufactured in China, and you had your war going on with China. So that was not the direction to look. But in fairness to them, the system kicked in. But by the time it kicked in, things had gone very far. All right. So those are the chinks in the chain that the Biden team will immediately have to start disentangling. The other part of it, was, enforcing the rules. But again, and he has made it very clear, you can only enforce the rules for people who are interested in obeying them. What they've done now is to say, if you're going to enter a federal building, you have to wear a mask. Outside of that, you don't want to wear a mask, you're trouble. And the reason the state is interested in all those things is so that you reduce the pressure on the hospitals. Yeah. Because when they're full and there are people who need to be placed on oxygen, everybody forgets what ideology was. Everybody forgets what political party they voted for. Everybody just says, I need oxygen. Yeah. So you need to ease the process by which that distribution can be made.
Let's talk about the stimulus package. Initially, there was some hitches. Trump was saying he was talking about $2,000 per person or per house or something, and what was given initially was $600. And I think Joe Biden is towing that line.
No, new president is proposing a new package.
More money.
Yes. Now, that's where that ideology of freedom and so on got corrupted and becomes a problem. Because part of the argument is that, look, you can't keep giving people money. Let them work and earn the money.
Okay.
But the jobs are not there. All right? Even when the jobs are there, when you have a lockdown and I have a job and I can't go to the job, and the company says, I can't pay you.
Or not working.
Yes, there has to be some way by which you pay to at least sustain life to a certain level. The problem with the Republicans is that they're looking at the budget and they're saying, if you keep paying this money, you're creating a bigger budget deficit. And balancing this budget deficit is going to be very difficult. The Democrats can say, yes, we are creating that, but we are going to balance it because we are going to bring more tax on those who can afford to pay more tax. That's where the political problem comes in. Because those who can afford to pay more tax are the rich people who say, I work for my money. Why should I pay it to you as tax? All right? So that's where that accusation about socialism again comes. Oh, they want to take your money and give to the person who does not have. Biden's team have proposed a stimulus. Trump did have a stimulus. Yes. But the problem with that stimulus was that it favored big business. And the people who were victims of that economic shutdown during the lockdown were not really fully compensated. That was where the 600 came in. But 600, for anybody who has lived out there, it looks like a lot of money from here when you translate it into Naira. But $600 doesn't go anywhere. All right? At best, you are very frugal. You can manage it for 1 month. You are really very frugal. So what Biden is, the Biden team now that is suggesting maybe $2,000. What is not clear to me, I don't understand it very well yet, is whether that $2,000 is per person or whether it is per family. Yes, per household. And even if it's per household, they normally would calibrate how many people make a household. Yeah. So those are details that maybe they're in the proposal. That proposal has, I think, is just now being debated by the House of Representatives. When it leaves there, it will go to the Senate. And that's really where the problem is going to be heavier.
But after the elections, we have more Democrats, right?
Yes. It's now, it's 50-50 now. Yes, they may eventually win, but that presumes that they vote strictly partisan lines. If there are some Democrats who don't think this is good, all right, and they vote with the Republicans, you've lost it. But if all the Democrats were to vote for the program, and if all the Republicans were to vote for the program, which is the 50-50, that's where the vice president now makes a difference. By law, the vice president is the president of the Senate. She doesn't have to be there every day. But when those kinds of votes come in, they'll have to say, Vice President, please, we need your presence. She will come there and cast her vote. And that's what will break that tie. Yes. Otherwise, you have a problem on your hands. The other thing is that, and that's why people keep saying, oh, Biden is good for the moment because he's not too tied to one side. He's able to negotiate across party lines.
Yeah, he got into the Senate, was it 72?
I don't remember the exact year, but yes.
He's been there long enough.
He's been there long enough. He knows enough people. But beyond just being there, he has a reputation as somebody who can talk with Republicans. There are some Democrats who wouldn't do that. There are some Republicans who don't want to have anything to do with Democrats at all. So that you have a man who has that kind of reputation for flexibility helps the case. And it's also said that he's very good friends with the outgoing president of the Senate, Mitch McCormick, who had been, so supportive of Trump until the last couple of weeks. So those are the things that give some glimmer of hope that the Democrats might be able to push some of those issues across. But they have to make a lot of compromises along the way because of that balance in the Senate, And the differences between them in the House of Reps, even though the Democrats have majority, it's a slim majority. So again, if some members of your party decide they don't like what is proposed, it's not like here where you know how we don't vote or how we vote.
All right, Professor Ekekwe here. We're looking at what happened in America, the swearing in of Joe Biden and some of the issues, that he will have to deal with moving forward. A commercial has to play. Afterwards, we'll look at some lessons that we can take out of this as a people. Good Nigerian for Port Harcourt. Stay tuned. People 09. Good morning, Prof. The radio. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
I'm just seeing you call from our president.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go on.
Hey.
Oh, dear. We've got Professor Ekekwe here. Well, he's a professor of political science, though retired now, but we're having this conversation. Does anyone actually retire from politics?
From political science, you can retire.
What of the politics of political science?
Well, everybody's a politician, so you can't retire from that one.
All right, so let's look at the lessons that we can take from what's happened in America. Some of the lessons we can take from what's happened.
Well, okay. I think specifically we can start from January 6th. What happened then?
Insurrection.
Yes. That is of interest to us because for the first time for most of us, we saw that the American system can be as unstable as any other if the circumstances were right.
Can be tested.
Can be tested, yes. All right? And it is the reaction of the law enforcement agencies that I found impressive. Yes, what happened was terrible, but they didn't go shooting everybody. They didn't go demonizing everybody. Instead, they went to work to find out who are the persons behind this. How do we locate them? And they appealed to the public to say, we suspect this person of such and such and such. Please, if you know where he or she is, we are looking for him. People cooperated. That's different from a situation such as I think would happen here. That happened if we know that one group did it. We demonize everybody in that group. And we go after them, and make sure we stamp them into the ground. They are being very careful to separate those who actually committed criminal activity from those who did not. Not that they approve what those other people did, but they say at least you did not go beyond being demonstrators. So demonstration, even though this one went to an extreme, and it didn't go to the, it didn't even, our NSAS didn't even go there. But see how we handled NSAS. All right? The moment something went wrong with NSAS, you had the president threatening fire and brimstone. You had the army chief threatening that, fire and brimstone. You had the police chief threatening fire and brimstone. As you and I talk, those threats have not, to my knowledge, led to where you now say, XYZ, you did this. ABC, you did it. And you tabulate what they did, not general blanket accusations.
Terrorism.
But yes, you tell us on such and such a date you did this, in such and such a place you did this, and you prosecute properly. Don't be the judge and the prosecutor at the same time. Go through the process. That's what America is doing. That's what they're doing even with their own president. That's why they had to impeach Trump 2 times. All right? That impeachment is to say to any president, hey, we can tolerate so much, but not this much. Because you swore to protect the Constitution, but you attacked the Constitution. You attacked the representatives of the people. That gives a certain immunity, a certain degree of integrity and respect to those who are representatives of the people. But before our own representatives rush to claim that, they must ask themselves, are we really representatives of the people? The way their lifestyle is does not compare with the lifestyle of the average American lawmaker. The way their salaries is respect to other salary structure in the economy. It's not the way the American salary, legislator salary, is comparable to other salary structures in their society. The way the American legislator interacts with his people, with the electorate, is not the way the Nigerian legislator interacts with his own electorate. So if you want to be treated that way, with that respect, with that dignity, deserve it, work for it. It is the people who will come and say, no, you should not be treated this way because you are our representative. That's one side of it. The other side of it was the role of the legal system. For all its faults, even up to the Supreme Court, even the last person appointed to that Supreme Court under very great controversy, that Trump was doing this because he suspected that this matter would get there. But you see, when those people got to office, they kept their hands straight. When a case came, the president claiming that the elections were rigged, and they said, we didn't see evidence. And they turned his case down. Even in the lower courts, by people he appointed. The point there is that our own legal system has to look at itself and say, hey, see how everybody is commending the Americans. Can we be commended that way? Have we played our own roles that way? You and I know that every election in Nigeria has its problems. When it goes to law courts, in fairness to us, so far, we have tried to say, once the Supreme Court decides, that is it. That's one thing that is good in our country. And that is something that we need to keep. The point I'm making is that we need to get that to walk down through the level. We need to get it to the point where when that Supreme Court decides, we really are satisfied that they didn't decide because X, Y, Z appointed them. They decided because that is what the law provides. X, Y, Z must appoint somebody. But when that person gets there, and that's why they are covered to say you can't just be removed overnight because somebody doesn't like your face anymore. No. But you, again, in playing that role, you ought to be sure that you deserve to be left in that place and not be molested. When you have a system that doesn't work, or rather, if you had a system that didn't work in the case of America, what you would have had there would have been a full-blown coup. There's no question about it. Because this man was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And within the armed forces, and you saw that in terms of how they were handling, even up to day before yesterday, before the inauguration, there were certain members of the National Guard who were removed from duty because they were seen to be sympathetic to the other side. Can you imagine our own case? When I saw that, and I thought to myself, and here we are dealing with Boko Haram. Here we are suspecting that some members of the military are sympathetic to this cause. Yeah. I'm not aware that we have made any effort to seriously and actively identify such people and remove them so that you can protect the lives of the civilians and other soldiers. Because if there's a mole in our group, and especially in a group as sensitive as the army or the police, you have a mole there. You have a gate open to the other side. Yeah. So they know where you're going, they know when to kill you. And our soldiers and our policemen do not deserve that kind of exposure. So when the Americans went through even that system, thorough as it is, even up to the last minute, they checked to see what kinds of people are coming to perform this security duty for the inauguration. This person, not sure, you remove this person. You do it in Nigeria. If the person you remove is from my village, I'll be the first to shout, oh, you don't like my village people. So we need to learn those kinds of lessons to say, if you set up a system, let that system run. Allow it the integrity it deserves so that the outcome from its operations will be something that will be supportive for you and for the other side. Until you actually prosecute a man in court and a competent court of laws finds that person guilty. Accuse him all you may, but until then, he's not a criminal. But here, we begin to treat you as a criminal once you're a suspect. And that's not right. That's what makes people lose faith in the system. The way the American system has worked is that it actually reinforces their faith, their belief in that system, that, oh, something positive can come out of it. And the last point, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The last point I wanted to raise here was with respect to the swearing-in ceremony that took place yesterday. It was impressive that even when they couldn't have crowds, they still try to make it appear as lively as possible. Those things, ceremonies, traditions, are important in any society. You have to have a way of reinforcing faith in that system. And that's what that process is. They could have just brought that man into some room, given him a Bible or whatever book they use, and he swears and they say, you are now president. But they had to go through that elaborate preparation, because every 4 years, they do it to renew faith in the system.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. That's all we can take on this conversation this morning. Renew faith in the system. They have a system. The system worked. When it was tested, it did not fail the people. That's a wrap on the conversation this morning. Thank you for joining. Hope you've picked up a thing or two. My name is Eno Beverly. Find me on Twitter at Enigma City, Instagram at Enigma City, Facebook, Enigma City NG. I return tomorrow, Friday, right here on the Morning Crossfire. Stay tuned.
We connect you to the world. We connect you to the vicinity. We